I chose to go bigger on the bigger complexes so that I knew I had to focus staff only on my property.
On your property,
So
on
that
site.
manager, yeah. So that manager, maintenance guy, assistant, those are my people. And then I hire the third 3% person to oversee them. So if you're going to like a secondary or tertiary market, the biggest challenge I've seen, one of the biggest that can lead to your complete failure, is a lack of good staff in a market.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
I am excited because I have Garrett Lynch here with me. And normally I would read the bio, but what you need to know about him really is that he's joined forces with Michael Blanc to acquire more than 150 plus units in multifamily assets around the country. And he was actually already talking about, I had said, so what's going on in your personal portfolio? So let's just go with that. Go ahead, Garrett.
Let's go with that.
You were saying you had 3,200 doors of your own, and then you downsized the frick out of it. And now you're doing it a different direction. So let's hear that. Go for it.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of like I had this pretty big business in the beginning, and went through this like wave where the partnership fell apart and didn't work out for me. And so I lost pretty much my whole real estate portfolio almost overnight, down to 18 apartments that I owned outright by myself, and then some cash. And so then I had the task of trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. So I was in kind of a dark place for a few years, just traveling and starting little businesses. I knew I was an entrepreneur. I couldn't stop that muscle had already been built. So I was looking for little businesses to buy and just different stuff like that. And then eventually I came across Michael and Drew with NightHawk Equity, and they were looking to expand their business. And so they had already about 800 apartments that they had kind of put the legwork and the muscle into to get that done. And so that's a hard thing to do, just to get from zero to like a few hundred units. That's kind of, it's challenging because you need to build a track record, or you need to partner with someone. It can be rocky, getting that stage. And so I found them, and, Michael had built this amazing platform online. I found him through his platform. I actually talked to Drew because they were trying to get me to join their coaching program. And I was like, well, I don't really need the coaching because I've done a lot in this industry, but I would like to bring you guys a deal. And if I did, would you guys do it? And they had this thing going on at the time, they still do, called the deal desk, where a student can bring a deal in and get a part of the GP for it. So I just went and I found this huge monster deal in El Paso. It was like 545 apartments. I'm like, you guys want to do it? Makes a lot of sense. They said, yeah. And so we segmented the partnership. We're like, listen, we're going to try to do one deal. So I had a crazy thing. I had Grant Cardone like offer me a job at the time. And like, I turned it down to pursue this deal. That was a whole another story, which was kind of wild. He wanted me to run Cardone Capital. And I was like, I don't know if that's the best move for me right now. I got this deal on the line and whatever. And so I stuck to my ground on that. And then I ended up working that deal every day, like a job, like every day, long hours, hardest deal of my life. So many little nuances, so many things to maneuver on that deal, to the point where it just wasn't happening. And we ended up losing it. So after a year of work, not making any money and putting in a ton of time, and then just losing the deal completely, losing all the earnest money, everything. That was like, I was like, this is my deal to get back in the game,
Right.
Gone. So luckily we had a deal that was a student brought in, and I helped get that deal across the finish line. We closed our first deal together as a partnership. And that was in 2019, the final, it was August 2019. And then right in succession after that, he talks about the law of the first deal, which is kind of cool. But you usually, what it basically is, as soon as you get your first deal, you get the next one in rapid succession, and more are teed up. And that's what happened. So we found our next one in Huntsville, and that was a 276 unit deal, 18 million bucks. That was the biggest deal I've ever done in my life up to this point. So we ended up raising the money, closing it, and that deal's been a huge success so far. And so we were like on a roll. We're like, man, let's make 2020 awesome. Can't wait. And then COVID punches us in the head. And the beginning, right as we're trying to get something going, it's like, and so I had the hardest time. I was like doing everything I could to get a deal for the beginning of the year. And everyone was like, dude, what's going on? I'm like, it's just, there's no debt right now. I don't know what to say. It's just things are going bananas. So
what were your biggest hindrances to finding a deal? You said there's no debt. What else?
Oh, the hindrances. So what happened was all the sellers were not budging on their pricing, pre-COVID pricing. So everyone was like ready to launch a deal, and then the debt froze up. The debt's not as good as it was anymore, right? So it doesn't look as good on paper. So naturally the pricing should come down, and everyone just thought that, well, this is going to blow over and everything will be fine. So I'm not going to change my pricing. And realistically, they should have to compensate. So there's this gap between what the buyers are willing to pay and the sellers are willing to sell at. That was not being met. That was the biggest hurdle to figure out, because now I can't get the same leverage. I can't get the same terms. And the sellers are like, well, I'm just going to wait it out. So there's this Mexican standoff, like basically people just staring at each other for the first half of the year. So even if I found a deal, it wasn't going to transpire into anything because they just wouldn't budge on the price, and then the debt wasn't really available. And so I was running into that a lot. I kept trying. I tried as hard as I could. But it was just what was happening in the market. And so then what happened is the whole year, there were no deals that popped up. And I was just researching the market a ton. I'm like, when do we get out of this? How's this going to spin? How's it going to play out? And what ended up happening was like end of Q2, like beginning of Q3, I got like one of the first deals that all of our peers got off market. So I found this like it was 130 unit deal in the best part of it, like one of the best areas of Atlanta. And I got it off market, put it in a contract. The guy came in at a good price. I was like, let's go, let's do it. We launched the deal. We raised the money in like 24 hours because for the like first half of the year, no one's gotten any deals. No one's done anything. So the money came rushing in like floodgates, like in. And so we were like, whoa, that was crazy. Like not even like soft commit. I'm talking about like in the bank, like all the money, like within 24 hours. So we were just like, that is nuts. Let's do another one. Let's figure it out. So I closed that deal in 45 days. And I used that deal to parlay it into another deal that was in a great area, very similar, but bigger. This deal was $25 million. Last one was 16, $12 million raise. So we go to do this raise, and this raise was much tougher because all of our peers got a deal at the same time. So right, we launch our deal, then everybody else finds a deal like shortly after ours launches theirs. And we all share kind of like a similar investor pool. So people are going in all different directions, and they're like, oh, I did my deal for the year. I'm out, I'm good. You know, like I don't need to do another one. And so we go to the raise on this one, and it was like, whoa, we got to work hard now. We're making calls, banging the phones. Got 128 investors in that deal, an average of about 95,000 an investor.
Okay.
And then we're able to close it, like fully fill it up within like 2 days before close or something. Close that one in 45 days. So it still worked. It was good, but we did 2 back-to-back deals. And I was like, I need a breather. That was a crazy end of the year. So it was like nothing. And that's
a lot of work to bring 2 buildings online. I mean, not only is it a lot of work to find the financing, to work all the details of the deal, to bring the escrow to close in 45 days, which is an incredible crunch. But now you get 2 buildings to sort out. I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah. I try to wait 6 months between my buildings so that I'm like not completely overwhelmed. And my buildings aren't, 200, 500 units. So, but continue. Yeah. You were telling your story and I interrupted you. So now you got 2 buildings you just closed. You need a break.
So we just closed it, and we like didn't even have time to breathe on those. It was just like, let's like beeline these to the finish. And my mentality the whole time was time kills deals. So the faster I can go on these, the better. And so we just took that mentality. And what the cool thing about doing that is if you can figure out a way to close deals soon, it sets you apart from other buyers. So now I am like looked at as this like silver bullet buyer right now, or NightHawk is. So if NightHawk's coming at a deal, they're serious and they take you seriously. And all of a sudden, these brokers deals are coming from all angles now. And the word is out. I'm on short lists that I wasn't on before. That it's much easier to find off market stuff. So now everything I'm getting, now I'm back on the hunt. I'm getting more deal flow than I've ever had, really, pretty easily. And so it's pretty cool. When you build that reputation, how that works. And so I did that kind of unknowingly. I just wanted to get it done as fast as possible so that the market wouldn't shift and the debt wouldn't dry up again.
Exactly. Get it done while it's still good, because we don't know what's coming at us.
I'm like, it's like, because every day was like something different. You're like, oh, this is shut down, that shut down. I'm like, oh, please just let me close this and not have a weird hiccup or something. Don't increase my COVID reserve by 200% or something. I'm like, you never know. Yeah. So it ended up working out pretty well. And then we doubled the size of our portfolio pretty much. Well, yeah, pretty much towards the end of the year, made up for it. So that was good. We were trying to close one deal a quarter, only got two, but I'm happy about what we picked up. And this year's is looking much more stable so far, knock on wood. But that initial scare was like crazy time. Like I was like, oh man, what do we do with this? So now we're running those deals and just, I like to buy in pockets that are more insulated. So insulated
tell us what you mean by insulated. What does insulated mean to you?
Yeah. So it's more of like
everybody has their own version.
Yeah, their own version. So my version is I like to buy an area that's in a pattern of like there's growth happening around it from a development standpoint. It's a desirable place to live. So people are going to live there, if there's COVID, if there's not, whatever, people still want to live in that area. That provides an extra layer of padding, I think. And especially in this environment, I think that's important because you want the demand to be there. And so we're not overly aggressive on our underwriting as far as like organic rent growth. It's still happening right now in the areas that we're in. And I think that those types of areas have you're in the best position to have like a crazy bump or an upside that maybe is unexpected. So you have this, like, imagine like a tailwind behind your property. If something goes wrong, the tailwind kind of picks you up and keeps you going.
So what type of neighborhoods are these properties in? Are they A neighborhoods, A buildings, B neighborhood, B buildings?
Yeah.
What would you call it?
They're like, I'd say A neighborhoods, like solid A neighborhoods. The buildings are probably like C plus, B minus.
Right. That's what you want. The worst building
like
in the best neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Like tougher buildings in the best neighborhood. And like the Sandy Springs one we got, and it's every house. There's a little pocket of like weird, shady apartment complexes, and then there's like multi-million-dollar mansions all around it. And like that's ideal because they're already redeveloping right next to me. They knocked down the shady little strip mall that's next to it, and they're building like a high rise, so like stuff like that. You're just in that path of growth. And the place is like bursting. It's like been 99% occupied the whole time and still is. And that one has a Hispanic.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's maintaining its occupancy, and it's got a Hispanic like workforce on there. So they all have jobs. They're all working. Delinquency is at like 1%. And they want a better place to live. Like they can afford it. We can hit it. We're already hitting our rent bumps without doing the exterior renovation on it. We're just doing the interiors. And it's working out like pretty well, like already. Like that's the coolest thing is when I plan on my projects, I take like a crummy looking building, has an interior, exterior, maybe it's dated on both. and I can do just one and get the rent bump and either skip out on the other or do the other and get even higher rent bumps. And twice in a row we've done that. So it's like the Huntsville one, we did just the exterior and we got like blew out our rent bumps like crazy without doing the interiors, which was nuts. This one we're doing just the interiors, we didn't do the exteriors yet, and they look really weird and bad. And we're already hitting our rent targets now. So it's like, that's the best thing, because there's additional upside that you didn't plan for.
Right. Like you said, there's a wind behind it that's causing it to continue to appreciate and perform
Totally.
regardless of your own management and value adds.
Yep. And that's kind of the play, I think, in LA. I would imagine that's part of it. You kind of have to, it's a bigger equity play out on the West, right?
Yep.
You guys, so you have to find that kind of a situation almost all the time. So that's huge, and so I'm trying to do similar things in these markets with tailwinds. But the other thing about these markets is they have to have inventory available too. So people are like, well, I want to be in like those crazy growth markets like Reno or, some of these like in Idaho or something. I'm like, that's great, but there's no inventory there. You have to be developing, or you're not going to be able to really expand there very easily. There's only so many properties that are trading there. It's going to be tough to expand like that. So I think that's one component people don't always look out for, but I think it's important. So.
No, I think people do have a tendency. I mean, that's actually, to me, the younger multi-units and unit investors, like I run into that, like, oh, I really want to buy in, a name place, whether it's a name because it's a major metropolitan or a name because it's on everybody's tongue as, oh, this is a cool place to buy, Boise, Idaho, who thought? Like one of my jokes is I used to say 10 or 20 years ago, like, it doesn't matter what market you buy in. You could buy in Boise, Idaho, and you can find something that's going to be a good rental. Well, now all of a sudden, Boise, Idaho, my joke town, has become an actual place for people to invest in, right? Whereas before it was like, who knows about Boise, Idaho, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't know how that happened. But I think you've hit on something which is accurate, which is they either want to buy in a name city or they want to buy where the current trend is because everybody says it's great. And they ignore secondary and tertiary markets. And they ignore the stability that's available in those markets. Solid cities doing solid work, doing low grade but essential growth, having industries that have been there for long periods of time. They're not sexy. They're not they're not Los Angeles and Chicago and, Moscow and other places that have outrageous prices, but they really, really work as far as being able to find a building that's going to bring you some version of cash flow that you can value add to that will continue to have tenants wanting to live there because it is a well-established secondary, tertiary city.
Yes. The challenge is this.
Tell me.
You can't buy too small in these markets unless you live nearby, and you can go there probably a lot of the times because you probably don't want to be in a situation where there's two types of like management companies you're hiring, either the one that's at 3% or the one that's at 10%. And what I mean by that is if you don't have enough economies of scale, you're hiring the 10% guys who you're buying into their maintenance people, you're buying into their staffing, which floats between your property and everywhere else. So you don't have a set manager that's only focused on your property. So you're fighting for their attention.
Yep, you are. I can attest to that.
So I know a lot, in LA, there's no way you can buy these monster properties like I buy elsewhere. So you probably, that's the thing. So you got to find that situation. But for me, in my experience, I've had challenge fighting for their attention. And so I chose to go bigger on the bigger complexes so that I knew I had to focus staff only on my property.
On your property,
so that manager. So that manager, maintenance guy, assistant, those are my people. And then I hire the 3% person to oversee them. So if you're going to like a secondary or tertiary market, the biggest challenge I've seen, one of the biggest that can lead to your complete failure is a lack of good staff in a market. So like for me, Oklahoma City was a horrible market. Went there, thought it was going to be great. That had great fundamentals, whatever.
Right.
Solely because I could never find a good staffing. It was so hard to find a good maintenance tech manager, assistant leasing, all of the people there were it was tough, and there was the same people rotating around. So when you go into a small market, there's only a handful of people that are in that industry that you can go to, and a lot of them already have jobs. So you got to be careful of that. That situation if you're going to go to those markets. That said, I made a ton of money in some of these markets too.
Okay.
We're in Huntsville right now, absolutely crushing that right now. It's got such a good tailwind. There's specific markets that are just booming that are secondary or tertiary that you can look out for and invest in. And then really the only way to break into like a bigger market is you kind of got to get one under your belt or partner with someone that's got a track record, because they're kind of like exclusive clubs that you're in a lot of times. You're either getting the scraps, if you're new and entering the market, you're probably getting the scraps because no one knows you.
Mm-hmm.
So the choice pick of deals are coming out. They're going to the big guys, and they're getting the first pick at it, and you're getting what's left over a lot of times.
Especially in the bigger buildings.
Oh yeah.
But, over 150, 200, 300, units. Yeah, those are going to bigger guys who have a proven track record.
I couldn't even imagine trying to start over by myself right now and go in or start in the beginning without knowing anything and try to compete against some of the people I'm competing against right now. I'm competing against people, and I got to get crazy with it. And I have a track record already, and people are beating me out. I get beat out all the time. So you're not even like, if you're like, I got the money, I got the guarantor, I got everything, but I don't own anything in that market, you're still at a disadvantage.
Okay.
And so with the bigger stuff.
But
right. Yeah.
Specifically on
So people go to secondary markets. Which is fine. Build your track record there. Be careful not to go into, I'd say anything under 350,000 people in an MSA is a little bit sketch. But that's just me.
Well, then, because also you want the building, like you want a building that's of a good enough size that it's got on-site staff so that they work for you, you have their focus, and you can directly assess and get feedback on their performance. You can see it in the building, you can see it in the numbers, and they should be accountable to that. And you can hold them accountable to it.
And Christina, this is just my style. This is like what I got into this, where it's like high leverage, a lot of investors. Not everybody needs to do that. Everybody's got their own game. Like that's not your game, right? Like your game is you kill it in LA or wherever, and you got your smaller multifamily, but you know it inside and out. You know the game. You know how to deal with those 10% managers or whatever, and just own them probably, and they love you. And so,
well, they don't love me, but I at least make them respond to me. My job is to have them love me. My job is to have them responsive. That's what my job is. To be honest, right? Some of them like me. No, some of them don't like me.
Maybe they don't like you.
But they do what I ask them to do, and they know what my systems are, and they know that I expect them to behave by me. I am the kind squeaky wheel. The kind squeaky wheel.
I haven't heard that one yet.
I always try to offer praise first, but then I have my list of demands and my need for performance. And here's what I want you guys to do when you have an empty unit. And here's what I want you to do when you're re-renting the unit. And here's what I want you to do if we have a complaint. And I have my little systems, right? And they may not match theirs. And okay, you can do my system or not. It's okay. In LA, we have other management companies available. Right. So I have other choices.
They have to.
Have multiple.
I can see that business being way more prominent because it's how the hell you're never going to own a 200 unit in LA. It's just ridiculous out there. So.
Yeah. And I mean, you can, but institutions own them. Right. So larger institutions
it's a total institutional play.
And we have so many smaller buildings that are 50 units or less. Right, that we need a dearth of property management companies that do those mom and pop less than 50 unit buildings.
You guys are playing a game that I respect and I don't understand at all. I mean, I kind of do.
It's okay. It's a pain in the.
I kind of do.
But your system isn't necessarily easy either. It's just you like being able to get it in play, get it under your control. Get your people in there. Now you can own the unit and own the activities on the unit. It's very hard for in a smaller building, but in the size buildings you're talking about, it's much easier, but it is work. It's not,
Well,
it's not
it's
part-time.
always work, but the challenge is that I'm not in town, right? So
Mhm.
I got to figure out my systems and how do I manage everything from a distance and go there, once a quarter or something. But so part of that for me is we hired an very experienced asset manager who goes there and knows more than me. So he knows more than I do. Now, when you get to the bigger size, you can afford like your own people, like bigger payroll and stuff. So we siphon off, like we have our own renovation manager. All she does is renovate apartments. She's really good at it. Our asset manager, all he does, he watches the numbers, make sure we're on point with everything. Kind of does like CFO and asset manager role.
Mhm.
Visits the properties, shakes hands, make sure everybody's doing their job. And then investor relations manager too for the investors. So you got to have enough scale to even get to that. But so I'd say the bigger stuff, the barrier to entry is probably higher in the beginning because you have to have the balance sheet, the money, raising equity, all that stuff. Then doing the smaller multi-units. That said, like LA, if you threw me in the middle of LA, like I would be like, shoot, how do I play this game right now? It's like how do I win? And I have to go up against people like you who would just crush me.
No, I think you work it out pretty fast, truth be told, because you
I
have
hope.
enough, you have
I
enough
hope.
sheer determination to work it out, if not a lot of experience
If I'm in a
behind you
best
now.
and final with Christina, man, I'm shaking if I'm in a best and final with you.
No,
I don't know what to do.
you're being sweet, dude. But no, I actually don't even own in California anymore. I have no interest in owning in California anymore. Just
Oh,
so
okay.
you know, nope.
Where are you
But
at now?
huh?
Where are
Indianapolis.
you at now?
What I do own, because my portfolio is, I do hard money lending as well. So I have,
Yeah.
right. So I prefer to be the bank at this
Mhm.
age that I am. I prefer to be the bank, and
That's right.
I have a few units of my own that I own in Indianapolis. But it is not what it was, years ago when I had like 50 doors I owned of my own and 300 I shared with other people. And it's a small portfolio in comparison to your 3,200. So I've always been a smaller player than you, but it was sufficient for me, and it's given me the life I've wanted to live. So I'm not complaining. This is not a complaint.
Listen, you can skin a cat a million ways. Like what's the difference between me owning 5% of a 300 unit and you owning 100% of 100 unit or 50 unit or whatever? I mean, if the cash flow is similar, it's kind of a similar thing. It's just different. You're playing a little bit of a different game. Yeah. But you can look at it however you want. I mean, I've had some of the smaller buildings I own more of, they were way more profitable for me. And I was like, wow, I don't ever want to sell this thing. It just prints cash.
It just brings cash. Yep. They can
Yeah.
be really boring. It can be boring, but but the point is, I was going to ask, so where's NightHawk going? Where are you and NightHawk going next?
Where's NightHawk going?
Yep.
Yeah. So we're,
that can be city, that can be model, that can be what's your next acquisitions.
Yeah.
And then where are you going with COVID in mind was going to be my next question. But where's NightHawk going?
We're going to continue to provide amazing products for our investors. And we're trying to build out, our investor experience alongside our quality of assets that we're purchasing. So there's a lot of people out there that they can put on a show and they can look like they know what they're doing, but when it comes down to the operational side, they don't, or they can't. And because that's the real hard part. That's the hard part no one's talking about, is running these things and actually making them make money. Yeah. Not everyone can do it, but they can act like it. And so I'm seeing more and more people that are just like not, walking the talk. And it's like, okay, I don't want to be that. I want to be the opposite. We have a goal that we really want to do well by our investors. And the overall goal of NightHawk is to help people become financially free through real estate. That's the big goal. And so whether that's passive investing, whether that's, becoming an active member somehow, whether it's coaching people to become their own actives and find their own deals. And that's the overall vision of NightHawk. And so, from our NightHawk's expansion, we're going to continue to buy deals this year. Our next target is going to be 5,000 units. Okay. If we can land a deal a quarter and do it well and do it right, we're not just going to do volume just to do it. We want it to be quality investments for people that they talk about. And then I like to throw a little bit of art flair into my projects, which is like super fun for me.
Okay.
So like I want each project to have its own culture and unique amenities and a unique experience that others don't have, maybe in the area. And so that's kind of a really cool thing that we're trying to use to differentiate ourselves. Like, adding in laundry machines that text you when your laundry is ready, adding technology into stuff, package lockers, hey, your package is here, throwing art up wherever we can, like murals on stuff, creating amazing amenities for people to enjoy, and just, of course, like state-of-the-art apartments with all the tech and everything in there. So that's kind of the vision for next year. And so we're I don't know, I would just went on vacation in Cabo for a week. I hated it towards the end. I was like, I need to go back to work like by like day 4. So I think that's when you're in the right spot.
I can only hang out and take in so much sun for so long before it's a
Dude,
little like,
I
okay,
don't
I'm
know.
off
It's
purpose
like,
here. I am so off purpose.
it's
I
really
need
bad
to
now.
get back.
I used to like enjoy these trips and stuff, and now I'm like start freaking out by like day 4. I'm like, I gotta go back. Like, I gotta get back in the ring. So that's when you're in a good spot, is when you're like excited every Sunday. You're like excited to get up, put on the gloves, and go to battle on that Monday morning. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I think NightHawk is just going to get better and better at delivering these products to the residents and to the investors.
So tell me, how do you think COVID's going to help, hurt? First of all, how is COVID going to unroll? And then how is NightHawk going to be able to work with that?
Yes, I got to plug my buddy a little bit. Ken McElroy, you may or may not know him.
I know. Yep, I know Ken McElroy.
So
I love him.
So he's awesome. And
I've never met him, but I just watch his videos, just to be transparent.
Oh, okay, great. I was just going to say you should watch his videos to understand. He's got a better finger on the pulse of it than anyone. He puts a lot of work and effort into those videos. Actually meeting with him next week. He just like has a great insight. He'll be able to explain it better than I, but I do think that there are a lot of mortgage defaults coming in general. I think that everything's just delayed right now. So there's a Band-Aid on the real problem, of course, and they can only bail you out for so long before things finally are going to turn. And I don't think it's going to be enough to offset that what's about to happen, at least on the residential side. I think apartments are probably a safer option for people, because people that lose their homes are going to go live somewhere else.
Okay.
Or they can't afford their homes, they're going to move into apartments. So I still think being in like an insulated area, like I said, like better area, better location is going to be helpful. Workforce stuff might get crushed a little bit, might get hurt, like urban areas.
Okay.
Their delinquency is going to go up a decent amount, because what's the next step? Where are they going to go? Like what's their option? They have to be getting unemployment. If that dries up, they're not going to go down a class because they're already on the bottom class, necessarily. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that's, you're going to see, if you're in a more of an A class area with like a B class product, you can get the A class renters to move into your properties, or the homeowners will move in your properties. Like, oh, this is nice enough, I can do this. In the more urban areas, or the more like C class, D class areas, they may not move down the same way. They can't. Where are they going to go? So they'll stop paying. There'll be issues with that, and then they don't really care about their credit a lot of times. So that'll be a factor. And so I think you're going to see some of the hurt happen in that sector of the market in different markets, but it's going to be where people are migrating away from the most. So the migration patterns, I think, are important. One of the things he talks about is you can see where moving trucks are going, which is super cool, and see like where people are moving a lot to. And so a lot of people are moving to Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, a lot of those markets. If you invest in those areas, I think it'll be good for you in the long run. And if you are investing in Illinois, which is where I'm from, you might get smoked, because they're leaving there in droves right now. So you just got to pay attention. I think location is something, it's always something in real estate you pay attention to, but even more so now. It's super important. And I think COVID in general, I mean, that's kind of what you got. we need to see how things continue to roll out, but you just have to keep tuning into what's happening in the markets that you're playing in. How are jobs being affected? Who is shutting down? What kind of businesses exist there? Mom and pop businesses are getting crushed. Everybody knows that.
Mhm.
So if your market is relying on a lot of that, you're probably in for a world of hurt as well. Just all these kind of factors. Just be smart about the economic conditions and do your research to really understand what you're getting into.
So given where you guys like to invest and the fact that I agree with you, and having read whatever data I've read and listened to whatever I've listened to, I've agreed with you as well that it looks like the C grade and the mom and pop units in particular, C grade mom and pop units combined, are probably the ones that are going to have the biggest and hardest problem because of the tenants that they house, as well as the fact that, mom and pop landlords aren't always as professional. I'm probably one of the few people I know that talks to my management company or talked to my management company every week via email and
you
expect them
consider
to
yourself
respond.
a mom and pop owner?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think, it's funny, but I don't like, when you think mom and pop, don't you think like the old lady, the old man, type of thing? Like it's kind of what pops in your head a little bit. I would say you maybe fall in the category, but like the kind of the sharp one, the sharp mom and pop.
The sharp mom and pop. Yeah, I appreciate
mom.
that. I guess I don't have enough wrinkles yet to qualify for the mom and pop. I have to stop using those, expensive face products or something. But no, I definitely, I oversee my own management. I have a management company that I pay 6% to, and I oversee them myself, and I have conversations with them every week. And maybe I'm not a big need. I don't have a need to go on site, but I have a need to be in communication with my management company. And I have a need for my management company to respond to me. And I generally have bought units that I've bought are 30 doors, 50 doors, 20 doors, 18 doors. I mean, that's mom and pop. Okay. I'm sorry, but if the definition fits, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I'm a duck. Okay. So let's just call it what it is. I've been in larger units, but not by myself and not with just partners. That was just a few of us. Right. And that's because I'm really riding on somebody else's coattails altogether. Right. Right. Like a Michael Blanc, right. Where you can you can finance a piece of something larger, but you're really not in charge of it. Right. You're a limited investor.
I work for the investors.
Right?
The investors.
Yeah, but you work for our common good, not for my individual good. Whereas generally the buildings that I'm speaking of, I own myself, or I and a few people own, and we're working for ourselves. So yes, I'm a mom and pop investor. I quack like a duck. So, but what was I saying before I got distracted with it? Oh,
you're talking about COVID.
COVID, and given that the difficulty is probably going to be in the lower grade units. And it's probably going to be in mom and pop owned units, not industrial owned units or well-organized organizations, right? Like NightHawk and you guys with Michael Blanc. How are you guys going to participate with that? Because that's not necessarily your market, right? The C grade buildings, unless they're in a higher quality market. So you tell me. Yeah.
So that's where it goes back to, we can still buy that type of asset, but we need to turn it into more of a B class, solid B, with like A finishes. Like it needs to be appealing to the people that are, dropping down a level because they're in a bind, or, they need to support extra people or whatever it is. It still has to be an appealing product. So, I like that, and I like the Hispanic demographic as well. So
I'm very partial Hispanic.
They're extremely resilient in this whole thing. It's just there's still a ton of construction work out there, whatever, labor work, all that stuff, and they pay, and they're amazing. They're great people, and so
I love Hispanic because they pay. They're family oriented. They don't really want any crap in their exact neighborhood. The mamacitas will give you heck if you. And they just seem to have this ethic of just either family oriented, pay bills. We take care of our families when we pay our bills.
What else? There's one other thing that I'm finding quite a bit is that whenever there's a vacancy, they know someone that will fill it somehow. There's huge word of mouth. dynamic that happens on these sites, which is crazy. Like one of the property we just bought, we don't really market it that much. And we're like 99% and it's all word of mouth. We know they know, oh, I got a cousin that wants this, whatever. And it's full, it stays full. I'm like, well, that is crazy. Like 130 units, like completely full.
They do. They want their grandmother next door to them or in their unit with them. And they want to have their kids not too far away. And they want to have their cousin, down the hall if they can. And I love that. I love that they're family oriented, and I love that they want to be able to have some version of community and control over their community. And I'm like, great, please.
I know. And so I think that, you can deliver quality products in a quality area, and then you have to look out for like the high crime areas where they're going to be probably the most affected in general overall, because they're, you're basically now relying more on the subsidy than anything. And so we've actually felt that in one of our properties where their portal, so that in order to get unemployment, you have to go on a portal. They didn't have a portal in this one area. So people had to go wait in line that never were on unemployment before in their life. They had to go wait in a line, and they weren't doing it because they were too prideful because they'd never been through this before. So now we got a third of the properties not paying.
Okay.
They'd rather not pay. And so now you're in trouble. And that was an interesting situation. That was very market specific, that we're like, whoa, how do we deal with this now? And so we actually had to come up with like a sales script to get people, we're basically forgiving all their debt to just have them leave. So we can fill it with because you can't evict people, right? So that's part of the business. And so the whole year, what's happening is the people, if they're not smart and understand a way to get people to move into family or move out, the evictions happen anyways. They happen regardless in these big properties, especially. Accelerate that, and then don't let them leave. Don't give them a way to leave. Like, don't have eviction. So that's how people are getting killed. And that you're finding that a lot in the C-class stuff, where their delinquencies are just piling up, and you can't evict, and you're just in a tight spot. So we saw it firsthand. I think there's going to be more of it.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see how people deal with it.
I think what you said that's really important is they're not, because they're sticking to you owe me rent, and therefore I'm gonna evict you, right? They stick with more traditional pathways versus thinking out of the box and giving them an option and a way to leave. Like I like that thinking. It's like, I like it because it really does, it's
I mean, listen, it's a tough time.
It's a problem for them, and it's a problem for you.
It's a tough time for everyone. I'm not trying to come after these people for all this money. I want to get, what I can get in that situation. And I would like if they would pay, but there's things that are happening right now that are outside of everyone's control. And so I'm giving them an option to save face, still have a place to live later. Mm-hmm. In return, just go. Please, the relationship's done. Go on your way, and we won't come after you. And you do that, there's nothing on the other side of this. Just let us try to keep our business alive. So that's kind of the approach we took on that one.
That's good.
We'll see how
you were able to get people to move out, and you were able to get people to move in. Okay. 17 left using that sales script. Just did it on a property that one of the ones we bought had some of that. We had 8 people in that situation. We got, I think, 6 out. Mm-hmm. So, I just want to continue the business, like moving it forward. So is what it is at that point. So financial freedom, last question, or just about last question. Financial freedom. So my show really focuses on, financial freedom. We talked about the previous show. So for those people who don't know, I interviewed Garrett probably about a year, a little bit more ago. So you'll be able to find that show where Garrett shared with us his worst moment and story in real estate, which was actually very helpful to me personally, actually, because I have a similar story, and it made me go, oh, you know what? It was really nice to hear somebody else and their process and their thinking and their personal reflections and personal healing. I'm going, no, I'm an investor and it's okay. I'm going to stay an investor, even though the crap just got beaten out of me. And even though my partnership has fallen apart and I am floored by it, right? And you have to really question yourself, after some, you said after some deep reflection and really looking at it, you had to go, no, it's okay. Like you could give yourself permission to come back to the table and keep playing the game. And I really appreciate your story because I've had that happen where I had to give myself permission to come back to the table to keep playing the game. And it was a partnership that fell apart, that created that personal crisis for me. Financial freedom. So we do a pretty crappy field that can be really great and really fun and really horrible and really a pain in the ass. It changes from year to year, from decade to decade, literally. Why keep using real estate, and what does financial freedom mean to you as an individual? And it's okay, you don't have to repeat your answer from before. It can be a whole new answer.
Okay. So I would say real estate is a vehicle that, I don't think I didn't like love it in the beginning. I was like intrigued by it. Right. And so it was something that is tangible. I knew it was tangible. And that I was like, well, if I figure out how this works, I know there's people that made money doing this, a lot of money. And maybe I can find my niche that no one else is doing. Because I didn't want to be a realtor. My mom was a realtor. And she's great, like amazing at it. But I knew that if I was a realtor, I couldn't like move around the country. Right. I was stationary because your pipeline's built in your hometown. Yep, and I saw that. So I'm like, well, there's other stuff out there. How do people do these, like, these industrial buildings and these office buildings? Like, how does that work? Maybe there's something else out there. And I just kind of like bobbed and weaved and then like figured out that there's a version of it that allowed you to be remote. And that you could make decent money doing it if you mastered it. I just don't think I understood what mastery really was. And how that works, but I figured I just kept sticking with it. Is the only thing I really stuck with for long enough to get super, I guess just knowledgeable about the industry to the point where I was going a mile deep and an inch wide. So I'm an inch wide, a mile deep, and that's where the gold is, right? Is there. And so I think you can do it in anything, but real estate is something that I really love because it's like buying businesses that are like, they have the same translatable verbiage and the same like metrics. And like, I could give a multifamily deal to, like, I could look at any multifamily deal right now, it could look completely different than the last one. And it's pretty similar as far as the bones and the numbers. It follows a certain pattern, right? And so you have this kind of similar language that everyone's speaking and just different versions of it that I really like. And it's everything. There's different niches and different people figure out their own niche. That's what's going to work best for them. Mm-hmm. And then you get really good at that. Maybe you try a different one, whatever. There's all these like different iterations of it, but like similar common, like language, similar common structure. It's debt, it's equity, and it's property. Deal, money, put it together. Like that's the base of all of it. And then you got all these little things that go on. You could figure out different versions of that to make money and get creative with it. There's just a lot of different cool avenues. And I don't think there's any industry that's really like that. And so that's why I really love it, where I could have an idea and like, oh, maybe there's hotels now that I convert down the road or something. Maybe that's something I want to dabble with. Yeah. On the side or whatever, there's just different things that you come across. And so for me, financial freedom is just being able to do what I want when I want.
That's what I can say. So what does financial freedom mean to you? Its definition is being able to do what you want when you want.
What I want when I want. And that's what I do. I do what I want when I want. I want to own a nice car, buy a nice car. I but it didn't happen overnight. It was a lot of sacrifice. It took years and years to understand the game, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of everything. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think the people that stick with it long enough are the ones that will succeed, and eventually it comes faster than there's some of these like 25-year-old kids that are just, doing really well at an early age, but that wasn't my path. And I had to get my ass kicked.
Oh, they'll get their ass kicked. Trust me, they will get their ass kicked. Real estate hands out ass kicking on a regular basis to a variety of people, almost non-discriminately.
Everybody, even that, yes, them too. I shouldn't say that they're not.
They will get their ass kicked. I mean, I know stories from people like Paul Moore and Bruce Norris and David Tilney and other people who have just said, "Yeah, real estate's kicked my ass. Absolutely, I've been there, done that, right?" And that's like, and we're better for it, right? We've all had that moment.
You just get. I mean, if you look at the people that are like the most successful people in the world, they've just solved the biggest problems, right? And so I'm trying to just become that person where it's like, even these problems that come up now, I'm just like, I've dealt with that, ran into that problem. I know, like, I've gone through enough of them, and I need to solve bigger ones and keep elevating into that next realm. But if you can get to a place where you really love what you're doing because you're so good at it, and it's in real estate, man, it is a ride. It's so much fun. And a lot of people, just getting to that, I think, is worth it.
All right, Garrett, I don't think I could have said it any better myself. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you and invest in your projects or a NightHawk project of some kind, how can they get a hold of you and talk to you further?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me, Garrett, Garrett, so GARRETT, at NightHawk with an NIGHT, HAWK equity.com. So Garrett at NightHawkEquity.com. You can find me there. I'm very responsive, so reach out to me at any time. I've met a lot of the people that are your listeners, Christina, and I spoke at one of your meetups, and I will say you have an amazing crowd. So love all of them. Would love to be back out someday as well, because you guys run a great show out there.
Thank you. Yes, we enjoy it. I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I'm basically a mamacita, so I really love my meeting, because it's like being a mom to 50 people, or I think our list is like 3,200 people, but about 50 people plus show up per meeting. So, I get to mamacita 50 people, a month. And so, it's good. It's good. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm proud of my meeting, and I'm proud of my people, and I'm proud of the culture we have at my meeting, which is intentional. So thank you. And it was wonderful having you there, and it's wonderful having you here on the Real Estate Breakthrough Show to share your experience and to share your knowledge and to share your research that you've done and where you think the industry is going, because you're right in the middle of it, and there's no better information than people who are on the street getting this done, because that's what's reality. That's what's actually happening. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're listening to Christina Suter on the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. Thank you so much, Garrett. Tune in next week for another show, or go to christinasuter.com for other free resources and information.